was the night before my mom's birthday. My dad had planned a special trip to the outskirts for just the two of them. I was thrilled at first because that meant no restrictions and full-on freedom at my place. So I called up my close friends, but unfortunately none of them were willing to come over. My plan for the night was ruined. I made a frown and cuddled up on the couch in the living room with my dog Lucy next to me. I was so bored that night. All I could think of was falling asleep. But you know what they say, the harder you try to sleep, the more difficult it is that you'll actually fall asleep. I was staring at the ceiling. Just then, my phone buzzed. I checked to see. It was a notification from Snapchat. I promptly opened it. A guy named Lucifer had added me. I usually don't add strangers, but honestly, he looked hot, and I added him right back. After that, we began to text nonstop for a few hours. It's like we connected immediately. One moment we were talking about food, and the next minute we were talking about movies. "So what are you doing staying up late at night?" he asked me. "My parents are away and I'm so bored. Lucy and I are only here," I replied with a snap of Lucy and me. At that instant, I was feeling quite drowsy, so I began to go towards my bedroom. I made my bed, turned off the light, and dug myself into the blanket. Just then, I realized that Lucifer had not texted me back. I figured that he had already seen my snap. He must have slept, I thought, and put my phone aside to sleep. But at the exact moment, my phone buzzed again. Lucifer had sent me a snap back. I opened it. It was a snap of a dog, exactly like mine, with 3 black spots on the back and a pink collar. I replayed the snap, yet it still looked like my dog. "Wow, it looks precisely like my Lucy," I replied to his snap. Within a few seconds, he replied, "Maybe it's your dog." My heart sunk. Is this guy nuts? I thought to myself. I stared at my phone, numb. Suddenly, I got another snap from him. "Go downstairs and take a picture of your dog," he said. Now that was when things started to escalate. Little did I know, it was just the beginning. I slowly walked down the stairs to check on Lucy, but she was nowhere to be found. "Lucy? Lucy?" I called out her name aloud. My heart was beating rapidly. Where could she be? I thought. In a panic, I texted Lucifer. "Who are you? And where is my Lucy?" I didn't get a reply back, but I noticed something shocking. All this while, my location was turned on. But this is when things get creepier. On the snap map next to me was Lucifer. Snapchat showed that we were only 2 to 3 meters away from each other. But how could that possibly be? I thought, because there was no guy with the name Lucifer in my neighborhood. So I ran upstairs to my bedroom in fear. I tried to push the door open, but for some reason, the door was extremely stiff and wouldn't open. I kept pounding on it, and finally, it opened. I quickly turned on the light. My heart leaped into my throat when I saw Lucifer sitting on the edge of my bed with Lucy's collar in his hands. What are you doing here? And where is Lucy?" I uttered. Instead of replying to my question, Lucifer stood up. I couldn't see his face as it was covered with an evil clown mask. "How did you get here?" I mumbled. "Through the door," he replied in a hoarse voice, as he had already blood on his hands dripping on the floor. I ran downstairs as fast as I could, but with every step, terror multiplied because I could feel someone running behind me. As I reached towards the end of the staircase, I saw that the main door was wide open. I sprinted towards the door and thought of running away. But as soon as I reached in front of the door, it abruptly shut on its own with a loud bang. I was too frightened to scream. All I could do was stare at the uncanny darkness. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. It was another snap from Lucifer. My hands shivered as I began to open it. My mouth was open in a silent scream. It was my picture from the side. I promptly looked away from my phone and towards the side. There was a guy staring at me. Due to the darkness, I couldn't quite see his face clearly, but deep down, I was certain that he was staring at me. I was hopeless. I began to run towards the kitchen. I hid behind one of the cabinets with a tiny hole inside. My breathing had intensified due to the extreme fear. I covered my mouth in an attempt to block any sound that would help Lucifer find me. In a matter of seconds, I got another snap from Lucifer. "I know where you're hiding," it read. My body trembled in fear. I switched off my phone and stayed quiet. After a bit of time, loud footsteps became audible across the room. From the tiny hole in the cabinet, I could see that Lucifer had been carrying a sharp metal knife. When he came in front of the cabinet where I was hiding, he paused. Then he gradually kneeled down the hole and stared at me. He had found me. In a split second, Lucifer opened the cabinet door and pierced a sharp knife into the soft skin of my left arm. He then suddenly walked away, and I never saw him again. Till today, I do not know who he is or was, why he chose me, and why he didn't kill me. I'll probably never know the answers to these questions.